Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I wanted to talk about Scourge's Blood Crucible and my early findings on both what it does and how to effectively use it. When you start the campaign, you will very quickly get access to one slot for the Blood Crucible. You unlock a second equipment slot as you progress through the Blood Crucible skill tree, and then when you get into maps and do your first map, you'll unlock the first map slot. The second map slot comes quite a bit later, and is something that you get something like 40 points into the tree. The Blood Crucible does a few things. Firstly, if the item is not a map, then when it absorbs enough corruption to level up in the Scourge system, it will then turn into a rare item. So this is something that means that it's basically a fountain of alchemy orbs when you're leveling. And this is a really impactful source of gear. While I was leveling, I pretty much got all my gear crafted through the Blood Crucible. What I was doing was I would just find items that had serviceable links that dropped on the ground. So let's say I was looking for something that was blue 3-linked, then I would just find a 3-link blue item on the ground, I'd stick it in the Blood Crucible and I'd hope. If it turned out good, I'd use it. If it turned out ruined, then I'd throw it out. The other thing though that happens with items that are leveled up through the Blood Crucible, each time you level them up, you can do this once on low item level items, twice on medium item level items, and then 3 times on items that are 68 and up. Each time that you level them up, they lose any Scourge implicits they had, they gain a drawback, and they gain a benefit. An example here, this Maelstrom Keep Colosseum plate, I'll get to why we're incubating this in a sec, but you'll see it's got a Scourge drawback of 11% reduced global defenses, and a Scourge benefit of regenerate 11.4 life per second. Often, the drawbacks are more severe than the benefits are good. But there are certainly exceptions to this, and there are also plenty of times where you just flat out do not care about the drawback. So you might have, for instance, a drawback of you cannot deal lightning damage, which is completely fine if you're an Avatar of Fire build, and that's one of the things that tends to make good items out of the Scourge system. But the other thing that's really significant is the socket modification. So there are 2 nodes that you'll unlock reasonably early during the campaign. Trypophobia and the Stitched Wounds. Stitched Wounds is flat out the best node so far on the Blood Crucible. So it's a 15% chance that when you level an item up in the Crucible, that it will add a link to the largest group of linked sockets. When you're leveling, what you're looking for is 5 socket 4 linked items that have serviceable colours. You then stick them in the Scourger and you hope. If Stitch Wounds procs, then fantastic. You've got something that is going to be a huge upgrade for your character. So definitely take Stitch Wounds as quickly as you can. Trypophobia is all upside, but not a very big upside, because when you get to Endgame, you're definitely just going to want to start with items that are already 6 socket 5 link, because that will give you the maximum chance of getting 6 link items out of them. And now that comes to what I'm doing at Endgame with it. So, there are 2 types of items that I am sticking into the Blood Crucible. The first one is when I find a 6 socket 5 linked craftable rare item, like this Maelstrom Keep here. I will throw a cheap Essence Craft on it. In this case, I think I used a Screaming Essence of Greed, and maybe it wasn't exactly that, maybe it was something else like it. Then I'm going to stick it into the Blood Crucible, and I'm just going to transform it twice, maybe even 3 times. The 3rd transform does take a lot longer, and I will stick it in there and just hope to get a 6 link out of it. If I get a 6 link and the drawback on it is something that is not overwhelming for every build, then I'm just putting it up for sale. Another player will find it useful, and I'll just sell it to them. It'll be a 6 link that they'll use for quite some time. Massive upgrade on a tabula rasa. So that's the craftable items. The other one is the 6 socket 5 link items that just happen to drop. Now, Edge of Madness, probably not the right choice. I just stuck it in there because I happen to have it. But what you want to do is find 6 socket 5 linked items that drop that are somewhat usable for someone. Doesn't necessarily need to be a super meta unique. It doesn't need to be as popular as Soul Mantle was last league. Just something that you can definitely see an individual choosing to use. You get a lot of 6 socket 5 linked unique items from 2 sections of the game. These are Ritual and Heist. That will drop a lot of these. In terms of 6 socket 5 linked craftable rares, you get these again from Ritual. Ritual drops a lot of them. And the other place that you get a lot of them is from invasion bosses that have when you have the exotic goods node allocated on the Atlas. These will provide you with a steady stream of 5 links that have a reasonable prospect of being upgraded by Stitch Wounds into something that could be really good. When you do finish scourging them and get a 6 link, if it has a drawback that is overwhelmingly bad, then what you want to do is stick it back in the Scourger again. If it's something that's just universal and terribly bad. On the flip side though, if it's something that is just bad for most builds, put it up on the market as is. I sold a 6 link that had a pretty overwhelming drawback, which was you cannot deal critical strikes, but I sold it to someone that was using Resolute Technique, because this is a trade league and my trash is someone else's treasure. Additionally, you will also want to be scourging maps. Scourge maps just feel like a lot of fun to run. One thing that's important, and something I've only recently learned, is that scourging a map does not elk it if it's scoured. So you'll see here that this is a kind of ruined map here, and I'm just doing it because, just why not? I didn't have anything else that I had no inspiration for anything else to put in there, so I thought I'll just stick it back in there. But Scourge maps are pretty impactful when you run them. They sort of feel like they have the Scourge mechanics with an interesting twist every time. And they do tend to be quite a lot of fun, so I do recommend giving them a try. But roll them to be something your character can beat first. And also try to avoid universally hated mods, like, for instance, Reflect. Even if your build doesn't care about Elemental Reflect, maybe you're a pure physical damage Cyclone character, you still don't want to have Elemental Reflect on the map, because you might get Scourge mods you can't beat. And then you want to be able to trade them to other players. But these Scourge maps have definitely been a lot of fun when I've run them, and they seem to be something that takes quite a long time to incubate. So I generally just keep 2 maps scourging all the time, and then just keep swapping them over, run a few Scourge maps here and there, but you're not yet at a position where you can run them back to back to back to back to back or anything. I do think that maybe when you get the top tiers of Warp Sluice, you might find yourself in a situation where you can actually run a lot more Scourge maps, like almost back to back, with Fervent Dreams granting 25% more corruption absorbed by maps, and this providing you with additional corruption when you're in a Scourge map. It's not going to be enough to run them only, but you'll be able to run a lot of them, so that'll help there. Anyways, that's my early thoughts. If you've got comments or questions, definitely let me know below. Otherwise, may your Val Orbs have interesting results. And remember that you can scourge an item after Valing it.